North America, this split has been different than any other split. Cloud9 and TSM, the teams that everyone's like, oh, they're always going to be in the finals. It's a Cloud9 versus TSM finals every time. No, that's not how North America is anymore. Team Liquid's emerging, CLG's emerging, Gravity came out really strong the last half of the split. Any team can really take the title for the best team in North America.
이번 서머 스플릿이 가장 안 좋은 모습을 보여주고 있기 때문에 조금 압박을 느끼고 있긴 하고요.
Every single year that I play League, people are trying to get me to get benched, or they want a new top laner, or I'm sick of Dyrus. Going up there and winning once again would be a really great feeling to prove people wrong.
Playing on the Madison Square Garden stage is going to be fucking awesome. Something that you can look back on and say, wow, I did this, I was there.
It's going to be the biggest arena I'll ever have played. Playoffs is where some things are going to show up. Now that we're in first place, we have some standards to meet.
이번 플레이오프에서 사실 정규 시즌 순위가 엄청 그렇게 관련이 있을 것 같진 않아요. 많이 바뀔 것 같아요.
If we can get back into our form, we can easily take playoffs.
거기서 제가 증명해야 된다는 거 그것만 남은 것 같아요. 기회가 생길 것 같아요.
Honestly, we are ready to take on anyone.
It would just feel right. It would just feel like it would be the right thing for CLG after all this work we put in to finally hold up the trophy.
Our major goal and prove that we're the best team in NA.
And you're going to see a new TSM at playoffs.
어떻게든 그냥 이겨야 된다 생각.
I think this is our split.
Madison Square Garden in the finals, you'll see us there.
Welcome back, everyone, to day one of the North American LCS Summer Playoffs, coming to you live from Los Angeles. Now, the crowd is pumped and ready to see which team will advance to the semifinals and which team will see their playoff dreams end today. It is time for our quarterfinal series, Team Dignitas versus Team Impulse. For Team Dignitas, they currently have 0 championship points from the spring split. So if they lose today, they will lose any shot at securing a world's berth. Now, they've got their coach back with them. Rico was instrumental in Dig's early season success. After he had to take a leave of absence from active duty, the team had a serious drop-off. So the question is, how quickly can he get them back into shape in this postseason run?
Yeah, and it's no question that he was instrumental. They were third place when he was on the roster and he was, here in person. They fell quickly to 6th place when he left, and they've stayed there ever since. So Rico's contribution, all the players shout him out all the time, and he's been remote coaching. So if the question is how quickly is he going to transition back, it's going to be pretty smooth because he's almost save for not being there a couple times, he's still been coaching them. So that problem, though, is that there's new problems. The problem before was, getting the synergy down. Now it's the entire league has gotten a little bit better, and Dignitas preyed off of mistakes. So when you're no longer able to see as many mistakes from your enemies, you're not going to have as good a game.
I think the game that comes to mind about Dig where they did not do that was the one where they ran the Twisted Fate Alistar with that Hecarim, where there was like an all-in just dive composition all the time and go. And that's the way they want to play. Like, they just want to go all the time. And I think that if they go with a hyper-aggressive composition like that just allows all their members to be the aggressors, then they have a much better shot at this game.
Yeah, that's when they beat them last time.
Yes, exactly.
All right, we touched on it already a little bit, but another component of Dig's success was Gamsu. When they were on a winning streak, it was usually off of incredibly strong performances like his Jarvan and Hecarim.
Yeah, his Jarvan and his Hecarim that he played against Impulse last time, where he went 11-0-10 in the game you were talking about, Crumbs. Those were landmark games for his career. But outside of those performances, he's very punishable. And he needs to outdo himself today because he's against Impact, who has so many things over them. He has versatility, lane dominance, and he's got an aggressive sidekick.
I feel like when he gets really far ahead, he just takes over the game. But if he's not, he's not getting those leads by himself, as the game is not going in his vision, he's going to be falling a little bit behind, maybe a little bit of tilt. Just has to keep it under control and realize that the champions that he picks have high damage, and no matter what can really turn the tides of a game regardless of his score.
You mentioned the tall task that he's got going up against Impact. Impact has proven himself to be a top-tier top laner, but he also has a positive, has been a positive force for change among his teammates.
좀 좋은 모습 보여서 NA에서는 그래도 지금 가장 잘하는 탑소리를 말할 수 있는 사람은 많을 것 같아요, 지금은. 근데 그래도 국제대회에 나와서 증명한 게 없기 때문에 아직은 그렇게 말할 정도는 아닌 것 같아요.
Playing with someone like Impact, at first it's kind of intimidating, but I do have a lot of respect for him. He has a lot of knowledge. He's really patient with the game, so it's been quite a big learning experience for me.
We all look up to him. He knows way more. He has way more game experience. He taught me how to play as a team, how to lane swap, and how to end games.
He does have friends, but are they going to be enough? The answer is, yeah, Maple Street going to be going down, turned into tarmac on this one, and now Dodo 8 also going to fall. Porpoise stuck under his turret in a 1 versus 4, now a 1 versus 5. Goodbye, double kill for Impact. Out he goes.
탑이랑 정글은 서로 한국어로 되게 디테일 있게 얘기할 수 있어서 미리 상황을 3분 전부터 만들어 놓을 수 있는데 미숙한 분 되게 많고 라인 사업이나 그런 경우가 사실 솔로캐에서는 만나볼 수 없는 경우잖아요. 그런 경우에 많이 리드를 해줬었는데 이제는 서로 이제 맞춰가면서 하고 있어요.
게임적인 부분 제가 많이 도와주기는 하는 것 같은데 모르겠어요. 도와주는 것 같긴 해요.
My ulti up. He's dead.
Rush gets the ulti into Impact. Here comes the push towards Keen. Keen does have flash. Pops it. Impact's gonna go for the taunt flash. Gonna land that a big shockwave, but is gonna land enough time. Okay. Rush! Oh, he flashes out! You gotta be kidding me! He makes it happen!
딱히 부담감 없고 그냥 제가 할 수 있는 범위만큼 그냥 좋은 모습, 그러니까 이기는 모습 보여주는 게 일단 목표라서 딱히 부담감 없어요. 근데 러쉬 형은 부담감 있을지도 모를 것 같아요. 거기서 제가 제가 증명해야 된다는 거 그것만 남은 것 같아요. 좀만 더 열심히 하고 좀 더 좋은 모습 보여줘야지, 이기는 모습 보여줘야지 그래도 다 베스트 탑이라고 부를 테니까 기회가 생길 것 같아요.
I'm so curious when Impact says, I have not proven myself in an international tournament. You won Season 3 Worlds.
Well,
did he feel like he was carried by Faker?
Yeah, that might have been it, shadowed by somebody else.
Oh.
Now he's kind of the star of his team now, so now he gets to be, the one that's carrying everybody else.
Yeah, hey, I like the mentality,
Yeah.
right? He's still clearly motivated to do well.
That's aiming high.
Exactly,
That's
stay
let's go to Worlds
motivated.
again.
That's good, I like it. All right, well, we're looking at the rest of Team Impulse. Now, they were the hottest team in the second half of the split, only dropping 1 game, finishing 8-1. But a note of caution here, we saw a very similar hot streak in the spring split, and when they hit playoffs, they lost momentum and ultimately ended up in 4th place.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was meta shift for the jungle. Rush wasn't able to keep up with Cinderhulk, but they also have another factor now, and it's the new mid laner of Gate. Gate, oh man, he's only played 2 games, so it's a small sample size, but out of the 14 mid laners that have played in the NALCS this split, he is 14th for CS at 10. In Gate's favor, though, he is going up against Shifter, who's number 12 out of 14, and is very not punishing in his game.
Yeah, that mid matchup is going to be very interesting because we saw what happened when he went up against Phoenix, where he really was punished, and subsequently Rush was punished as well because he had to cover for Gate more often than he would have liked to.
It's actually very interesting because Gate, although we see these stats and things like that, there are intangibles that he brings to the game. He's a very positive guy. He's always got a positive outlook on the game, and also he doesn't mess around in scrims. And I've been hearing that their environment is better and they get more out of their practices now because he's taking the game very seriously and he wants to get better.
Yeah, and it's no surprise, but I think a factor of the situations where he has faltered a little bit is the matchup. A lot of times we see Victor versus Azirs, and people think, oh, this is kind of more of an even matchup, but there's so many factors like, oh, is the blue buff being denied from one guy? Because the Azir has full-on pressure for some levels until Azir can just Victor can full-on wave clear. And then the matchup is so volatile, and if the junglers or the supports aren't really pressuring that then one lane can lose horrendously without even fighting.
Yeah, well, another matchup that could heavily influence this series is the junglers, Rush versus Helios. We touched on it a little bit, especially the jungler top synergy. The play around the top lane will be very interesting. Rush has been an all-star for Tip, dictating the pace of the game with his early aggressive moves. Now, he has the most kills, highest kill participation, and has dealt the most damage per minute among NA junglers this summer.
Yeah, and Helios, it's just night and day difference between them. He has the highest average deaths per game and lowest kill participation among junglers in playoffs. Helios has also been very predictable. He's taken Rek'Sai in 9 out of his 14 games, and now his style is becoming predictable as well, where he's going to pick the fight if he sees one.
One other thing that worries me for the Dig versus Tip matchup is that I know Dig has a lot of respect for Rush, maybe a little bit too much. So if they go into the game, they'll be thinking he's going to gank my lane. He's here. He's going to camp me, especially if they're up against something like an Evelynn that can just be anywhere on the map. It'll put so much pressure that Dig will just collapse under the idea that he could be there, but he really is not. So they really need to have a lot of vision control, which hopefully Helios can do his job as he's been doing very diligently throughout the split. Keep tabs on Rush so that his lanes can feel more comfortable.
Yeah, we'll see if they can shake the fear of Rush being in every lane all at once. Now, before we send it over to our casters, we want to add a little spice to the conversation taking place on Twitter. Today, we're going to have a Q&A session with our resident Salty Doge, Zyrene, right here. So tweet your questions to @LolEsports and use the hashtag Ask Zyrene. We'll be combing through for the cream of the crop for Zyrene to answer at the end of our broadcast. With that, let's send it over to our casters to get the series underway.
Thank you very much, Dash. Hey guys, it's time to check out the starting lineups for this match. It's gonna be a very fun one. We're gonna start with the blue side, Team Impulse. Impact setting, he wants to be a massive performance this one in the top lane, Rush in the jungle, Gate the new guy in mid, Apollo on AD carry, Adrian on support.
And on the red side, it's Team Dignitas. Up top is Gamsu. In the jungle, Helios. Mid, Shifter, AD Carry, Core JJ. Supporting Kiwi Kid, and of course, Coach Rico is back in the building.
Yeah, and I want to see what kind of impact having Rico back will have on Team Dignitas. It seems like, especially after some of their defeats, Rico is very good at calming the team down, figuring out exactly what went wrong, and figuring out how to fix it. So even if they drop the first game, I want to see if they can come back in a subsequent game, because we know coming into this one that Team Impulse is just a massive favorite.
Yeah, I feel like it was critical for them to get him back in time for playoffs, because yes, he was helping coach remotely, but having someone here on stage is crucial in a best of 5. When somebody comes up with a counter pick and champion select, you have to send the team into the game with a game plan ready to go.
All right, we'll see how good Rico's game plans are as we get ourselves into champion select for the beginning of the North American LCS quarterfinals summer split. This is the split that leads to Worlds. Dignitas must win this series for a chance to head there.
Yeah, and I actually just love the first ban right out the gate by Team Impulse, banning Ahri away from Shifter. It's the one champion Shifter's had a huge impact in lane on.
Right out the gate? Really, Jack? Come on. Starting early. But I think it's a good place to start in the mid lane with all this focus on Rush and Impact, the junglers and the top laners for both sides. With Helios also having a very small champ pool consisting of mainly Rek'Sai, I feel like Alistar might go under the radar here, and it's huge for both of these supports. This is the champion that Kiwi Kid got Dignitas back into the LCS with. This is the champion that Adrian keeps calling for people to ban against him because he doesn't even like playing it. It's so overpowered.
There's a lot of power picks in this matchup, and maybe Alistar would be right up top there. I'm wondering what Team Dignitas does. They're heavily targeting Rush here, but this would still technically leave the Elise and the Evelynn. Even though Evelynn's received some nerfs, it still seems to be meta in a lot of things, and it's the Elise that they go with right up.
Everyone's having questions. Has Rush picked up Elise?
Well,
yes, he has. It's still locked it in first.
That's the hope.
Now,
before its impact on the top.
It was a good point that you raised, though, previously, where there's a lot of these players that have been playing the game for so long. They have hundreds upon hundreds of games of Elise logged from the time where she was overpowered. Rush is not one of those players, so he's recently had to put in the time and training on her. And it is a champion that, while the early game combo is very easy to execute and you just use all of your skills for the full execute, her late game team fighting is very complicated, and you could really tell the poor Elises from the great Elises during the later stages of the game.
Yeah, and with how contested she is, she's banned half the time anyway, so even if you wanted to practice her, sometimes you don't get to. So we got to see how that training shows up. Team Dignitas taking plenty of time for their 2 pickups. They're going to grab the Alistar for Kiwi Kid, as you mentioned, and Echo comes through here.
I mean, Helios' Rek'Sai was banned away. He really doesn't have games on hardly any other junglers. Echo kind of fits the moving tank that he wants to be able to play. The Alistar is something we already touched on. If it wasn't going to be first picked by Team Impulse, it was almost certainly going to be early picked by Team Dignitas.
I think that Sivir also, because Alistar has gone under the radar, Sivir going back to a second-round pick here for Impulse side, they could very well lock that in. It's been huge for them all season long.
Yeah.
It's been actually huge for every team across the world all season long.
Yeah, the most picked AD carry across all regions.
Wow, they're not going for it.
But that's the thing. I mean, the last 2 games that they've played, they've actually run with Kog'Maw. And if they can, they like comboing it with Janna. So Janna already going to be a nice counter against Alistar in the lane. They also have Elise to play a little bit of more of a poke game. It works for Team Impulse to be able to pick Kog'Maw right here instead of Sivir.
I was actually cheating before this game, and Helios was in a game practicing Echo. Apollo was in a game practicing Kog'Maw as well.
Yeah, you still said
that's
Sivir.
Just bad form. I gotta keep the mystery.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really interesting. I want to see how Helios will perform on this Echo. But you talked about him not, having put in a lot of time on anything but Rek'Sai, especially against Rush. Giving up a lot of the early presence as you do when you play Echo is fairly dangerous because he concentrates so heavily on his early clears.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how Rush is able to utilize the extreme advantage of Elise in the early game.
Yeah, what's interesting with the Echo pick is, yes, he has a slow clear, but if he's able to fight early, he's generally effective. I think Elise is going to be more effective than him in that case, but if they were planning a bit of a collapse, Team Dignitas does have the counter pick for mid lane, which is what you want, a strong mid laner and a somewhat poke skirmishing jungler if you're going to be invaded by Elise.
Yeah, especially if we're looking at a 2 versus 2 scenario, Echo thrives in counter ganking. It's so much easier for him to get off the stun from Fog of War. If he's in a brush or if he's just behind the lane, Echo can turn that around. Elise is a champion that's pretty much all single target, and she's trying to burst a single person down quickly.
I was going to ask a question, though. What's the chance that it's actually Shifter playing the Echo, just if he learned another assassin and it's a flex pick in the first place? We talked briefly about
Zingy here.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, it's a nice one for Kiwi Kid, but I mean, we talked in the pregame about Gate being small sample size to be fair, but statistically the weakest mid laner in the NALCS right now. If Shifter could beat him up, again, unlikely, but
I told you I cheated though, Freak. I saw Helios in game previously.
He was thinking a level ahead. He expected that.
Okay,
No, you're right. Okay, Victor in the mid lane. Shifter's playing Victor. It's Jungle Echo after all. I just wanted to ask after all. But the 2 big team fight mages are in now. Gate back on his here for another repeat performance here. Shifter on a Victor for some team fight damage.
Yeah, as far as the performances we've seen from Gate so far in the LCS, his Azir, while it did win the game and have a good KDA, was weak in lane. But with that being said, it is one of his most played champions in solo queue, so there should be a large amount of comfort there. And I really don't know how much value Team Dignitas gets out of the last pick, Victor, since that's one of the champions you kind of pick regardless of your lane matchup. It's one of the early pick mid laners. While very powerful, not necessarily a counter by any means.
Yeah, I mean, we've been spending so much time on individual champions for individual players here. This team comp as a whole for Impulse is far more defensive than we've seen from them throughout this split. They've got the Kog'Maw waiting to scale up, Azir for the backline, Janet disengaged, and impact on Shen. While he has been great on Shen, and he's even played it in previous seasons,
we had a highlight of it.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a good Shen.
It's not that solo killing top lane champion that people were looking for him to go head to head with guns.
But he can help rush kill people, and that's going to be a fun one regardless. So guys, we're going to check in with you guys throughout the series to see who you guys think is going to be victorious. So keep updating your votes throughout the series. Tweet at LML Esports. Use the hashtag TIPWin or hashtag DIGWin to let us know who you think's going to win this one. It's going to be a very interesting match, guys. The beginning of the North American LCS quarterfinals are here. Team Impulse versus Team Dignitas.
Yeah, let's get into this game 1 because we know the Team Impulse, it looks like they got almost everything they were going for in this draft. Looking back at some of the past trends as well, Core JJ had played Kog'Maw in Team Dignitas' 2 Week 9 games as well. So Sivir neither picked nor banned. A little bit surprising, but it does follow some of the more recent trends. Other than that, the only first-time champion would be Elise, but that's going to be a highly picked champion.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to what direction Rush is going to take this Elise, because both the Runeglaive and the Cinderhulk are viable builds for her. If you know Rush as a player, then you would think that he would go for the Runeglaive for the extra burst damage early and look to fight people. But Kiwi Kid says that he The current meta is actually working in Rush's favor.
The meta right now changed from like Cinderhulk junglers to like more aggressive carry type junglers, and that's what Rush is like really known for playing. And he kind of faltered on the Cinderhulk champs, but playing the the aggressive, damage-heavy junglers, he really excels at that. And we've seen him take over plenty of games the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I feel like it's really good for their team.
Well, if we're playing on Rush's tendencies, he wouldn't be playing a Cinderhulk jungler. But we've had these discussions about Elise in the past. The Runeglaive, faster clear speed, much more damage, more likely to see in solo queue, more likely to carry. But in competitive, so frequently, you just go Cinderhulk, Sightstone, and a Locket.
The thing is, you don't have to even go Locket and Sightstone. If you go Cinderhulk, you can still go Spell Penetration, Cinderhulk, and do significant damage. So many options open to him. The other thing about Elise is that she benefits heavily from vision control. And we went over all the vision control stats for Rush, being fairly low in comparison even to Helios, who doesn't have many stats in his favor. But the awards per minute versus Rush would be one of them.
And to get ourselves into the early game, we did see different jungle starts, actually, I believe. We got a minor leash by TFE's bottom lane. They ran right into the lane themselves. Team Dignitas, actually, after getting their initial leash, are actually heading into the jungle, meeting up Team Impulse here.
Team Impulse kind of read this a little bit wrong. They've been outgained by Team Dignitas. They're now trying to go to what is the weak side, but Gate is collapsing before Shifter. It's going to be interesting.
Whole lot of damage already onto him. Ignite plus the Rebuff doing plenty here, but looks like he'll be able to survive this one. Sorry, no Ignite used, but plenty of damage.
Technically, if Team Dignitas wanted to commit to this, Core JJ could force a 5v4, but it does look like they're going back to farm. I wonder if this is the end of the harassment game that we see.
We've already seen Adrian come back here, so yeah, with Apollo staying just alone in the bottom lane, he's going to be happy to get solo farm and not be pressured here, and no more fights for Dignitas.
Yeah, not only is he getting solo farm, but he's got the lane pushing against him. So Apollo's in a great position, whereas Gamsu's going to have to extend far out into the lane, and most of the minions have already been killed off. Helios going mid, though.
A lot of damage done towards Gate. He's got to be real careful. Flash and heal now both down.
Yeah, heal in the early skirmish, flash there, only 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Team Dignitas already trying to prey on Gate, who has shown some weakness in lane pressure from the start. Helios immediately goes in to try and counter jungle off of that early mid pressure.
Yeah, that's actually a very good early start here for Helios. Gate, that was basically the worst case scenario for Gate. He held on trying to save his summoners, took the damage from the gank, and had to end up blowing them anyway, being a little bit greedy there with the summoners. Usually if you blow them, you want to blow them early so you don't take the damage from the gank, and you'll be fine in the lane. Now he's going to be hurting, though, because Alistar, even Kiwi Kid roaming up. Wow. They are just pressuring that mid point here for Impulse. Gate, the new guy on the team, is really feeling it.
And a approach gank top, I think. Let's see if they can avoid it.
Yep, Rush is ganking top right now and just got the flash out. Elise's level 3 kit, pretty much unmatched.
Both these teams really, like, a lot of times when you see high pressure games like this one, right, your first playoff series in a while, teams oftentimes play a bit slowly. They're a bit slowed down by the pressure of the game, but both these teams firing so fast and so quickly in this game. So many ganks come out already.
Yeah, I think it really does speak to the preparation of Dignitas and, you know, the effect of having Rico back here in person. They came out with a very early game plan, and you can very much see that their point that they wanted to pressure was Gate from the early point of the game. Both Summer are still going to be down for him. And we'll see if he decides to spend a lot of time warding to try and keep himself safe. Helios does still have Flash on Echo, so he's got to be wary.
Yeah, I really need to see if Shifter can push this lane advantage over Gate. Double Summoner Spell advantage, Experience advantage. Goes back and just buys a spell book, though, instead of saving up for the 1,000 gold you normally see on Victor in order to shove the lane. So Shifter won't actually have amazing ability to shove the lane as of yet. And we've seen him actually get a super early advantage in lane a couple times and then immediately lose it by missing some CS later. he needs to be able to push this against Gate if Team Dignitas wants to gain an edge.
Yeah, and the other thing you would look for is continued jungle pressure on that mid lane where both summoners are down. But Helios does not return to try and fight the 2 versus 2 that would be in his favor at the mid lane. Instead, he goes bottom, heads off Rush. In the top, though, Impact doing a lot.
The chain vest already from Impact. Knowing he's laning against Trist, not expecting a lane swap back into the Gnar. The chain vest would be a pretty good item against Gnar as well, so
yeah,
it's just the right way of building up towards Sunfire here.
That was actually a very good job of Gate there, playing defensively in his lane as Kiwi Kid came through his own jungle. That Alistar gank just as potent, if not more so, than the Echo gank at this point in the game. Able to keep himself safe, and Rush goes in where he just saw the enemy support come from.
Nice.
Wards cleared so far here for Rush through the roof.
And Rush is actually farming pretty well. Even though the CS only looks like it's 2 different, he's up 200 gold over Helios here. His choice in camp's actually been quite a bit stronger. Helios, all right, gets that one, walks out, but yeah, there's actually a small lead for Impulse through the overall laning phase here. They've also been pressuring Gamsu a fair bit. Tristana, of course, playing Demolitionist up in the top side, is getting plenty of turret damage down.
The turret damage is the big difference. It's about 2/3 dead in the top lane for Dignitas, whereas Apollo's only killed about 1/3 of the turret down the bottom side.
Yeah, and I always like to keep up on the game plan of the junglers because every little bit of information you have to react immediately. They just had Adrian scout out Helios on the blue side quadrant of Dignitas jungle. Immediately, Rush goes in and snags a camp. He takes that small window, takes only 1 camp, doesn't overstay, and stick around for the red buff steal. But he's able to get something, little pieces off of Helios' side, and then returns back to his own jungle. Ooh, didn't quite go to see the ward, and Raptor buff procced. That's always a kicker. I hate when that happens.
So now, of course, Team Dignitas knows where Rush is, and they can feel scared on the top side and safe over on the bottom. We're going to see Gams to go for the recall. Now that his teleport is up, I think we see him run back to the top lane here because Dragon, of course, is on the table 8 minutes in, and we're going to have some pretty mirrored lane assignments as a result.
Also, look at the control. The vision here for Impulse is very impressive. They've got the full defensive lineup plus one of the scuttlers and the only pink ward on the map. So the entire team contributing here as Rush has been doing his job clearing a lot of the vision from Dignitas out.
Yeah, and this is actually kind of a surprising swap back from Team Dignitas. In my eyes, they were very close to killing the top lane turret. Obviously, they wanted to have some presence bottom lane because Impact could Shen ult down and create a play to force the Dragon, but all the work they put into the top turret is essentially lost at this point. I wonder if Gamsu's going to be able to push that turret down before it costs them, because they've been giving up farm advantages for that turret damage, but they're not actually getting the gold from killing the turret because they swap back down bottom.
And taking that initial one with Tristana is huge for her. That's what her
the whole point.
Exactly, that's what her early game hinges on. Right now, though, Pink Ward going to allow Rush a pretty easy avenue to gank. Tristana very difficult to gank, though, especially with an Alistar in the lane.
Rush did go Cinderhulk, by the way. We could tell by the early health crystal, but he upgraded it very quickly. I still feel like, based on his style, he'll be going magic penetration after the fact.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You can go Cinderhulk and you don't have to go purely defensive. She still does plenty of damage due to her base stats as well as the double percentage health damage. Qs. Let's see if we have a blue trade here. Helios going to steal this one away. Not quite sure what the timer was for Dignitas side, but Helios getting it done. Looks like he can even hand it off to Shifter.
That's pretty handy.
Nice. Now the wards have expired, and they've dropped another pink ward inside Rush side of the jungle. As Helios moves in, leaves plenty of vision here, and moves up to try and take down Impact. Gamsu's ultimate, or his Mega Gnar will run out by the time that gets to the turret, though.
What?
Maybe isn't Bombi Cinder range when he tried to recall?
I think so, because Bombi Cinder, I believe, does aggro unaggroed monsters, whereas Cinderhulk does not. I could be wrong on that one. You guys know more than me.
So what's interesting here is Impact is getting shoved in a little bit by Gamsu, so maybe they'll end up getting that top turret anyways. I think they need to get it pretty quick, though, They don't want to fall behind the curve here.
It's surprising too because when they all swapped back, Gnar was 400 gold behind Impact and still was able to push up in the matchup.
Yeah, well, there was a giant creep wave up there that Gamsu was able to get at his turret. You know, at the point that you're talking about, yeah, Impact had an entire level lead over him as well. But the 2.5 minion waves that were sitting there, he was able to collect the majority of it at his turret, which was crucial for him.
It's actually a really minor point I want to bring up. You guys talked about Rush being unfamiliar with the champion, but first, hold on. There's a gank in the bottom lane. Dan with the disengage. Kiwi Kid slowed down. And Impulse will stay safe. So you talked about Rush's familiarity with Evelynn. Ooh. They should keep ganking. Never mind, I can't talk about this yet. All right, her melee W is an attack reset. Last time he cleared a pink ward, he hit the active before his first auto attack, just to get the attack speed. But the right way to do it is attack once, then hit the thing for an attack reset and the attack speed. So a minor misplay demonstrates Rush's unfamiliarity with the champion.
All right.
Really, really
and
minor
he's going
thing.
Sightstone too.
I wanted to see it.
Oh,
wow.
Boots and everything else. He's doing the more vision control heavy game. Team Dignitas is also playing a very controlled game as well. High priority on getting deep wards. We've seen multiple roams early. They've gotten that second pink ward in. This time Rush hasn't been able to clear it. And they've done a pretty good job scouting Rush out for the entirety of this early game. With that being said though, Apollo's had a lot of time to farm pretty happily in the lanes freeze before they swap back. Shifter hasn't really pushed the heavy advantage despite Gate being down 2 early summoner spells in mid lane. And the result of actually these side lanes from Team Impulse with Impact and Apollo having farm advantages is granting them a big lead. 1,500 gold by 12 minutes.
Just from minions, just from farm, it's really impressive. Almost every single lane down the line has a pretty sizable lead here.
Yeah,
500
Gate.
in the jungle, 400 top lane, 580 carry. Yeah, it's just Gate, as you said. Pretty big deal here. And Rush still just hard farming. Center Hulk, of course, gives him plenty of clear speed. He's just going to be fine.
And he's gone straight into the Sightstone as well. Talked about the importance of vision control with Elise. Her combo so much more effective if she can get the cocoon off from Fog of War and get the entire rest of her kit to chain after that.
Finally clears the pink ward away.
Has to respect Helios. Doesn't get to clear the green ward. Oh no, it gave away Spiderling gold.
One quick thing we should mention as well. Is the Azir changes on this patch as well.
All right, barely though. That guy had to run and hightail it out there, Apollo. Couldn't quite land any more ultis on that one. But yeah, this bot lane's getting worse and worse. And I mean, you mentioned the early Tristana turret pressure, but now the bot lane turret could almost be taken out by Impulse's duo lane.
Yeah, he can't get to the turret. Kog'Maw's already at the point, you know, post level 6, that level 6 harass from Kog'Maw borders on the line of Corki harass with the long range, and he's gotten the early Sheen, so just that W active Sheen auto attack
with a Janna shield
from Apollo is definitely taking its toll on poor JJ.
Yeah. I really love Cog Janna and Cog Nami as duo lanes. Once you get a couple levels in there to where the buffs and the heals can actually beat out what a stun would do, it just gets ridiculous.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that, you know, you would think that Impulse would like standard lane setups for the majority of their games so that Rush gets more freedom to do what he wants. He can control the game. Impact will get a 1-versus-1. However, Team Impulse have opted for quite a lot of lane swaps. They have a fairly slow early tower taking time on average in their games.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the power here that they're able to swap Kog'Maw back, you know, post level 6. Kiwi Kid actually going aggressive at the wrong time here. Rush comes in.
And Kiwi now forced to run away, but Exhaust is on after the ult is already popped. He's got no escape summoners left. Cocoon, who gets the kill? They're gonna try to give it to Apollo. There you go, first blood of the 80 carry. Team Impulse starting out strong.
Yeah, and it happens right before 15 minutes as well, so a pretty slow early game we see now, but classic Kiwi Kid in a sense when he's not playing at the top of his ability, overextends to clear some wards, slowly punished, and a great job of Rush being involved in the first blood, but giving the kill over to Kog'Maw. Really everything Tip wanted.
Yeah, actually I just realized I said that backwards. Impulse have more lane swaps than average, so quicker early tower kills.
Well, one thing about Team Impulse for sure in previous games is their pre-15-minute aggression, especially between Rush and Impact, and it's actually very subdued in this game, partially due to their more defensive team composition. As a duo, Rush and Impact have 42 kills in the first 15 minutes of the game this split. The next closest team combo is CLG with 26 between jungler and top laner. Across the board, they're way more aggressive. Even just the junglers themselves, if we're comparing the last 7 weeks, Helios had 8 kills, 9 deaths, and 16 assists. Rush had more than double the kills, 20 kills, 12 deaths, and 28 assists. But this game, just the 1 assist. It was very subdued, almost being pushed into Team Dignitas' style, but in doing so, they were still able to get the gold lead, still able to get the first blood, and still able to get the dragon. So even though they're playing Team Dignitas' game in a sense, they're still winning.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at gold lead, Rush may as well have 3 solo kills. He's 1,000 gold over Helios. So impact-wise, just getting the farm and denying a little bit himself has been absolutely wonderful. Gate was preyed upon early.
Yeah, the NALCS feature, Team Impulse saying, we just have to win somehow. Obviously, it makes... Yes. That's true to say, but that means they don't have to win playing the exact Team Impulse style. A gold lead is a gold lead. Doesn't matter how you get there.
And we saw inklings of this during the regular season, where Team Impulse would throw out, a random poke comp here and there, and alternate styles. This is very impressive, though, that they're able to open up game 1 of a best of 5 without having to go to their more high tempo style that they use for the majority of the season. We talked about in Champ Select as well. We're looking for the more defensive start here, especially with the Shen and Kog'Maw pickup. Having that first kill go to Kog'Maw is huge for them.
And this is the cool thing I really like about Team Impulse is even though they have a big carry jungler, a big carry top laner, potentially the best in the league, and at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, yeah, Apollo and Adrian, just be utility. Go follow everyone else. Go let the Koreans win you the game. This is the centerpiece of the composition. It's a big Kog'Maw AD carry, and Gates, the big damage dealer here, the newest guy in the league. Impulse are happy to play around the new guys.
Oh, this
the
is
non-stars.
This is actually fairly big. Dignitas committing 3 people down bottom. Don't get the dive to work out here on Impact. He's going to get away to safety. Yes, they get the turret. Impulse double pinged up top, though. Looks like they might even try and push 2 here.
Yeah, I wonder how this is going to be matched because there's 3 people top, 3 people bottom. How many will Team Dignitas send to complete this? At the moment, they have no realistic way of defending off that top turret unless Gamsu burn his teleport almost right now.
Gamsu's headed down bottom
they
here.
want to dive him.
Impact's got to be very careful. Kiwi Kid ready with the ultimate as well.
Keep in mind, though, Tristana's not that much faster than a Cog with a lot of attack speed and a Janna shield, so 2 turrets traded
for us.
Yeah, in fact, Cog was faster there. And out gets Impact, out goes with the team, 2 turrets for 2.
This is the other thing I like about Impulse. They pretty much never try and play reactively and answer the push from their opponents. They always strike somewhere else.
Yeah. Which is correct.
They'll
can't
take
get there
that
in time
game.
otherwise.
Exactly. They'll take the game of chicken.
Whoa. Well, they got a bird in the mid lane. Looks like the game of chicken is Gate running away right now from Shifter, who is the victor in this matchup. And Helios going to make his way back down to the jungle. And of course, Dignitas do have some room to work with on this side of the map. They could ward up this area. Dragon only spawns a bit from now. 21:01 will be the respawn, so.
There are a few things I like about Team Dignitas going right now. Gamsu, even though he's a little bit behind in CS, going Black Cleaver on Gnar will help him neutralize the Shen split push later in the game. I feel like a Black Cleaver Gnar, especially if he picks up another offensive item, is a really good answer to a Shen split push and is one of the few champions who can kind of push him out of split pushing if he gets the start of a kill. And also, even though Shifter is only 9 CS up, it's still a CS lead. Victor still has crazy kill pressure on pretty much anyone at any stage in the game when he gets farmed. So things are not out of hand by any means for Team Dignitas. They really just are hoping for one Team Impulse overpush, and the gold is close enough that that could then get turned around and give Team Dignitas an advantage.
Yeah, I'm very curious how the team fighting here from Impulse will work out with this more defensive setup. It's going to be up to Gamsu and Kiwi Kid to get to that back line and disrupt the battle lines here for Impulse. They want to do everything they can to keep Azir and Kog'Maw safe at the back lines.
And so far, those guys are doing reasonably well. So Impulse game plan is going okay. Dignitas hoping to hamper it. They're going to get Scuttle. It will live right around the time Dragon spawns up. A couple of pings. They are locked by wards, but of course most Dignitas on the other side of the map. It goes down reasonably quickly.
Bail out. Kiwi Kid moves, so they obviously know that they need to back off here. There's the ward that gave it all away.
Yeah.
Could cost a mid. Honestly, just that little gamble trying to sneak a Baron. Gives him
Careful,
a slow
Kiwi Kid
response.
posturing, goes for the flash, but the entire team's there. Shadow ulti's on. Gate flashes out. Now Kiwi Kid's going to be a bit overextended, but the ulti gun's going to keep him safe. Impact down the front line. Rush on the side, also getting chunked out by the Gnar. Down to 1/3 health. Turret does go down. Dignitas retreat.
Impulse going to shove back up mid lane too, but Rush sustained far too much damage, and he won't be able to help them. 4 versus 5 scenario. Dignitas just going back to farm up the lanes here. Dragon. Who's actually charging up his rage bar should be.
Yeah, so there are 2 ultimates used, the Shen ultimate and the Alistar ultimate. So 2 defensive ults basically down to start this fight.
Yeah, a big summer spell though in the exhaust from Adrian also down. So an interesting even sort of trade there. Basically Impulse just retaining their vision control is enough to retain control of the mid lane here as well. They've done a great job up and down the river.
Yeah, Gates at a really powerful point too. If Azir gets set up for the Dragon, he can really zone out with soldiers. His mana is a little bit low, but honestly, Team Dignitas is giving them a ton of respect. It's just an easy Dragon.
Well, here comes Helios. He pops the parallel convergence. Ooh. Doesn't decide to go in for the stun though.
Zoned out Rush for a bit though. Team Impulse were actually a bit scattered. Kiwi Kid not making the engage happen though. Dignitas back to the mid lane.
I have to say, especially to your point about Gate Freak, this is probably the Team Impulse game with the most vision control that I have seen from them all split long. They've been able to actually control both the Dragon Pit and Baron Pit simultaneously.
To be fair, Rush bought a Sightstone, so that's maybe not Gate himself.
It's a non-Lee Sin Sightstone, so he doesn't need to conserve wards for killing people, which means he can place them more.
Oh!
Nice
Flash.
little double flash there to avoid the flash taunt.
JJ still has his, though. It means Impact not going to find much to do there. Stopped up.
Whoa, how'd he get there? Whoa, Rush behind Helios will not chase over the wall. But wow, yeah, that's... I think he didn't even lose anything. He didn't have to flash.
Walked all the way around the top to get into that brush. Definitely caught Helios off guard a little bit.
And me and you.
Yeah.
Vision control, boys. All right, well, here goes the Baron. They've got a sneaky ward on the outside, just outside the entrance.
So they push Helios back, but that doesn't mean they can 5v4 within the pit.
Yeah. In fact, sustained half his health in damage there as well.
And with Kiwi Kid having an ultimate, he could engage any fight he wanted. That would have been bad news for Impulse, and so
I'd say send it back. He's got teleport and ultimate available. They want him at full health, and Dignitas have been able to take True Sight over the area now, shoving up mid lane as well. That little Baron start, another false start on the Baron, costs Impulse a little bit of ground.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it doesn't seem like Team Impulse has many ways of starting fights, and they may be showing a little bit of frustration here. Impact already used his taunt flash, so that's down for another 5 minutes. Baron, they've tried twice now, hoping to get either a straggle in or just stealing Baron. They don't have good ways of engaging outside of Rush landing a long-range cocoon or Gate doing an all-out Azir initiation, which doesn't really seem like the role they want him to be playing. So this game is going to be stretching more and more, and the percentage goal lead is incredibly minimal for Team Impulse right now. I do have to credit Team Dignitas, for the most part, getting some pressure mid when Team Impulse does those somewhat frustrated type Barons to try and leapfrog ahead in the game.
Yeah, setting up Baron's definitely hard for them. I do feel like they have the ability to hit turrets. They've got an Azir and a Cogma with a Janna shield.
They should.
I feel like these champions could play other roles than Rush Barons.
Win condition-wise, they should probably, instead of forcing the Baron, just group push those interior turrets. I mean, they've already killed 4 turrets right now, so a lot of the game is vision control, prep the Baron, but that's a lot of wars to clear, and they have not been properly clearing the things specifically outside of the Baron Pit. They've been clearing the inside of the Baron Pit quite well, but they're missing their sweeps on the outside.
Rush has gone for a Riley's Crystal Scepter on his next item there. It won't slow in Cocoon, but he's at least bought some ability power for himself. The slows will be around.
It's going to be a while.
Yep, that had actually no effect on the vision control whatsoever.
Sure,
it earned him 30 gold.
Now you only have 4 auto attacks to get that one down.
I meant in terms of like current vision gain, but I guess you're right. It had an impact.
Goes from 10 to 4.
All right. 60% decrease in the health bar of the warding. And Impulse once again milling back towards the mid lane here. They are pushing mid in first. Mid tier 2 I don't think is easily assaulted though. Dignitas continue to hold over Baron control. It's only 2 dragons to 0. Impulse actually setting up for the mid lane siege with a turret coming up from gate.
Just as we talked about, instead of forcing the Baron, the vision control was unable to be fully cleared. They're thinking about sieging up mid, but there's a lot of split push pressure going on here. Gamsu requires a response.
I think they should push it because Gamsu does not have teleport, and you've got a Shen with not only teleport, but also ultimate. Team Impulse right there had
they should have pushed.
Teleport advantage. They
Straight
should
away.
have pressured that and kept the charge up mid lane going, but they back off, they break, and they respect the Gamsu split push. That's probably an inaccurate teleport timer on the side of Impulse, not keeping track.
Which is strange because that's exactly what they burned when they forced the Baron. They forced the teleport in right there, and that's pretty much the only thing they could have potentially gained from that Baron force.
Missed opportunity for sure.
Not capitalizing, that's for sure.
Rough stuff here, but maybe Impulse can continue to recover. The gold lead back to 2,500, but honestly this number has stagnated plus or minus 800 for the last maybe 15 minutes or so, honestly, ever since that 2 turret for 2 turret trade on the sides of the map.
Yeah. Has there ever been a Team Impulse game with 1 total kill 26 minutes and 40 seconds in?
I can't imagine.
I would say no.
That's why I kept going over the sort of odd defensive nature of the composition this time around for Impulse. They just had the ideal scenario for their team right there. Set up an Azir turret in the mid lane so they can continue to keep that outpost and have pressure and force the reaction from Dignitas while they have their split pushing Shen with both of the global teleports up, but unable to gain any lead out of it.
Yeah.
And Gamsu's timer just ticking down the entire time.
And the thing is, I know Impulse can play comps like this. They've played multiple Kog'Maw Janna games before, and they've won the vast majority of them here. It's just, today they're just not quite making the correct choices here. And of course, to talk about Team Dignitas, these guys are definitely playing better than people had expected them to. This was 6 versus 3, and I think Impulse was the clear favorite here, but Dignitas, of course, keeping it very close.
Yep, staying right in the game. I wonder if they're going to be able to control these dragons, because at the pace this game is going, it seems like Team Impulse may only have the objectives as their win conditions, and if you're going to win with 5 dragons, based on all the times it's happened, giving the opponent even a single dragon can be pretty disastrous towards that goal. This dragon could be Team Dignitas' chance to sneak it, or the catalyst to create a big fight.
Careful though, because Zeke's Harbinger is in, so Kog'Maw can be incredibly scary. And a fight, Rush wants in! He's going for the battle! Does not land this fight, that goes to Helios, but the fight has begun all the same. Rush in the front line, Apollo zoned out. Ulti only knocks really Adrian in, and the fight continues as Rush picks up a kill. Gamsu's a second casualty, and this could be pretty nice. He looks at the trade kill, but it's a 3-for-1 so far, and Impulse run away with a very clean battle for themselves.
Yeah, huge teamfight advantage there for Impulse. Yes, they lost the dragon, but they can shove straight up the mid lane. Kog'Maw will annihilate this turret. Azir can spawn soldiers right on it. That thing is done for. What a good job there. Even though Rush wasn't able to get the steal, he was able to chunk down CoreJJ in the back line, take him out. CoreJJ got almost no auto attacks off in that team fight.
And it's still a catalyst to take a huge advantage because they have a Nashor's Azir as well as an AD carry plus John, and basically the entire turret killing team still up. They get 2 turrets and an inhibitor off of that team fight victory already. That's the big break Team Impulse needed, guys.
3 kills and 2 turrets later. Yeah, Impulse now in a very sizable lead for themselves. And you talked about how hard it was to control Baron, but now with an inhibitor dead, it's going to require more attention and more time from Team Dignitas' members to allow more of that map to be picked up by Impulse.
Yeah, and I don't know if the pressure is going to completely end here. They were posturing towards Baron. It's good to see this fight again because first off, Rush jumped in, but the big thing to watch here is the zones of control and where the rest of Dignitas is. They send Shifter along the side, but he doesn't immediately get the response of Gamsu. Gamsu doesn't get a good Gnarl off, and because Gate is so untouched, he can just wreak havoc on the Team Dignitas assaulters right there. Rush, because he had the shield from Impact as well as being a tank Elise, created the distraction for 3 and got a kill.
Yeah, the front lines there's a huge discrepancy where Impact was able to get his taunt off onto Gamsu via Rush's positioning, plus a little chunk there from Kog'Maw, and the DPS from Impulse far outstripping that of Team Dignitas. One inhibitor down. That's going to open up the floodgates here for Impulse. Once again, Impact does have ultimate right back off of cooldown. Yeah. They can make a similar play. All they have to do is keep up the pressure and starve out Dignitas. If they keep them bottled up, they can keep the they can make the wards expire as well.
And then you get to take Baron whenever you want it because they can't spot you doing it.
Yeah, basically, they want to try and strangle the vision here from Dignitas. If they can keep the pressure on Dig and keep them inside the base, just they only have to ward up a smaller area of Team Dignitas jungle.
All right, so risky stuff for Team Dignitas then. They only have so much time to get out of their base and clear things away as mid lane constantly pushes in. Team Impulse still in complete control this game. Back at the mid lane they go. No turrets to kill, but they can push Team Dignitas around. Engage comes in on a rush. This is the battle. Big burst of damage, and wow, they almost knocked on the board. They get it. JJ, the first kill. The fight now rushing the side. He wants Gamsu. Gets him in, but Apollo's still around. Apollo can do so much damage or get stuck. Get by some time. There's a jump on in. He's one hit away. They get him. The shutdown via Shifter. The chase on in. That's the eighth for Team Dignitas.
Could be Baron too.
One after the other. Team Impulse just had poor positioning and deaths. That's exactly the mistake that Team Dignitas was waiting for with their passive style that wasn't giving Team Impulse fights that they wanted to create. This time Team Dignitas takes the initiation themselves. They get the mistake. They already have the dragon, now a Baron, and the gold is even.
Kiwi Kid does it again. He finds a great initiation there, an immediate teleport from Gamsu.
Yeah,
also, he just completed his Harbinger, so both teams right after completed Harbingers get the huge team fight. JJ able to get his reset there, and then Gate gets annihilated on the front line.
Gate way far up in that fight, and then since the two main threats, honestly, the Elise and the Azir were down, two of the three main threats were down, it made Kiwi Kid had his round of cooldowns up once again and could just go for it. That was a perfect fight for Team Dignitas at exactly the time they needed.
A rare misstep by Adrian getting caught at the beginning and couldn't peel for Apollo or Gate successfully. He had to save himself, still building up to a few more items, going for what I think is Ardent Sensor. Adrian was playing the buff the Kog'Maw game plan. And, you know, Apollo could probably solo carry with a build like this, but
one interesting thing about that last fight is there was no Aegis of the Legion on any side for Team Impulse. Rush opted for the Frozen Heart, whereas Adrian opted for the Zeke's Harbinger to then buff up the Kog'Maw even more. But you kind of saw the impact of that when Shifter nearly blew up Adrian by himself. His build would be so much diminished. Keep in mind, Shifter has cooldown boots, no Void Staff, and no magic penetration. So that first bit of magic resist is the most important magic resist you can get, especially against a mid laner who's not building magic pen. And I think that's a big reason that they got wiped out in that fight so heftily.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the item started now by Rush, but you're right, that was definitely a big deal here. And the overall damage contribution pretty high from the members of Team Dignitas. Kiwi Kid has got Zeke's himself, so Tristana is also going to be a very scary damage threat. 90% crit chance when that is on her. We're on 5.14, so it builds really fast and doesn't last quite as long as on live, but still, of course, very strong.
Yeah, this Baron buff also should enable Dig to push both mid and bottom lane enough to get the free dragon #2 and even up the dragons as well. While #2 doesn't mean a lot in itself, it does mean that we'll be much shorter to any team ending the game through dragons. I don't think that is going to be the deal. It's going to be all on the team fights for Barons.
Yeah. And this game just got so interesting because if we're thinking from a hyper-scaling perspective, who scales better? The Azir and Kog'Maw are somewhat unmatched in their roles for how much damage they can output in an ideal situation. But with that being said, Team Impulse doesn't really choose when and where to team fight. That's actually what Team Dignitas is going to be able to do, and they're just getting more and more powerful at doing that.
Yeah, Rush losing a lot of health there, and the interesting thing is until Infinity Edge comes in, Tristan actually is a bit better because of Zeke's. The crit chance is a huge deal for her.
Plus, late game Elise for team fights gets far outskilled by the tank Echo. Helios can do a lot more in these team fights than Rush now can. Basically, all the CC being on Dignitas' side, they have the playmaking ability, whereas Impulse have to play defensively, keep both of their carries up. long enough to burn down the Dig front line.
All right, so state of the game. Dragon just got taken. Baron's a few minutes away from respawning as well. Exactly tied in gold right now, 55.2 on both sides. The farm has been going to the major 2 carries of Impulse. Likewise for Team Dignitas. Yeah. Nars tanky, 3 tanks on one side, really only 1.5 on the other. Rush is not really as durable as Echo, it seems like.
Well, he's done the Rylai's. It seemed like he was going to go kind of Matic penetration into a more damaging Elise, but it's really just the slow utility right now since he hasn't built any Matic penetration to go with his Cinderhawk and his Rylai's Crystal Scepter.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we mentioned, that lack of Aegis will make Apollo and Adrian really, really vulnerable. Even Gate, 2 shifters damage. So if Kiwi Kid or Gamsu land good CC from Gnar or Alistair and Shifter isn't taken out of the fight somehow, on any of those 3 squishies, they are completely dead.
Absolutely. Makes it pretty scary then.
Yeah.
Impulse peeling away from the burst is going to be a big deal, and it's been hit and miss with that.
It's just a fascinating game because we were expecting, most people were expecting, so one-sided of a matchup between Team Impulse and Dignitas. We were wondering, you know, if Gate can, we're thinking if Gate just goes even with Shifter, it's probably an easy game for Team Impulse. And early on in the game, Apollo and Impact were showing their advantages pretty heftily there. But as this game has neutralized, Gamsu's split pushing is pushing off Impact, so Impact hasn't had any split push pressure on Shen because of the Black Cleaver build that Gamsu's gone on Gnar. CoreJJ has picked up enough farm. He's dead even with Apollo. Carry-wise, with the Zeke's Harbinger, CoreJJ is getting out incredible small, potent bursts of damage and somewhat matching what Apollo can do in team fights.
Yeah.
It's looking like Team Dignitas has a very real chance of taking game 1 here.
Well, Apollo 600 gold from the Infinity Edge himself, and I think that's actually a very important break point. The emergence of extra crit chance really does increase the value of that item here in the current state of League of Legends, but a tied game and a very close one here. Game 1 of the quarterfinals. Again, at stake here, Dignitas must win this series to even have a chance at going to Worlds if that's ever in their sights here this year. Of course, a long way away, but you never know. Impact right now running away from Gamsu.
Nice dodge.
Yeah. Stopped Hyper and the slow itself.
All of the wards you can see for Impulse turning to defensive wards after those team fight losses. Pretty big swing, giving away that Baron. Rush is going to have some God Cocoons, you know, to make it worthwhile. He has been able to get his Magic Resist Aura finally now, but not too big a fan of the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. No penetration, as you mentioned.
All right. Well, Aegis finally does come in here for Rush, so at least he's started getting some of the tank stats. And I can understand Rylai's being a build to make the ganks happen, but he's only got a Rylai's from Gate, and slows don't stack anymore.
Yeah, and Elise is a lot about, even in the early game for the ganks, she's a lot about the full combo in the duration of a cocoon. You cocoon into your human form Q and into the rest of your damaging spells to try and get a big burst. Slow's not as big of a deal.
I wonder how many of the LCS junglers like Dexter and Meteos tweeting out like, oh, this Elise build, I would never build this item.
Or they're like, yes, I love it. Well, yeah. At least you do, it does have health on it and you get more out of your Cinderhawk, but
All right, well, Zeke's re-triggers. Pretty much happens constantly.
All right.
Mid lane under fire again, of course, it's an open inhibitor.
I wonder if Team Impulse still feels superior in team fights after what happened last time, because some of the only ways they can find opportunity is through objective conflicts. With Baron being up, they're wondering if Team Dignitas jumps in. Here it
Pops
goes.
the ultimate. Of course, the ultimate, the Janna disengage. Agent's forced to run. The teleport comes in, and it is Mega Gnar. He flash ults. He catches Rush, and Rush goes down. A rampage for CoreJJ, and the fight continues. A kill back for Gate. Impact trying to run. Tonson dies. A double kill now, and into the back line. Gate does what he can. A triple kill, and Apollo cleans it up.
Are you kidding me? Gate's able to salvage that bad start. At the beginning there, Rush gets taken out. Adrian had to blow his ultimate on himself. Impact even used the Shen ult on Adrian. But Apollo free firing from the back line. That's the power of that free firing Kog'Maw. Infinity Edge completed, Freak.
Yeah.
There's your DPS.
And the free-firing Nashor's Death Cap Azir when everyone funneled into that choke point. Now the question is, with these 40-minute level death timers and a siege minion, can tip end?
It's just Alistar with no ult, but he's got flash, but there's still a cannon minion up. They can shove the wave in. Agent doesn't need to take this yet. Just get the minion wave in. And here comes the damage output. 2 seconds on Alistar. The crits up, which doesn't matter much.
I mean, Kiwi Kid has no ultimate to try and take this. He's only wanting to headbutt the damage away. Headbutt him away.
Adria's doing some damage. She's doing what he can with auto attacks. Here comes the Echo. The teleport in from Shen. This should be enough. There's the game. Team Impulse take game 1 in 40 minutes.
Well, I think it's safe to say that's not exactly the game we expected. Low kills, some mistakes being made by Team Impulse, but then it's Gate and Apollo who carry the team fight that propels them to victory.
Apollo got first blood, ends 5-1-5, 400 CS, highest in the entire game. Just completed the Infinity Edge before that fight.
Yeah.
And the late game Azir, late game Kog'Maw just destroyed Dig as they group up.
And full Enchantress Janna as well. Zeke's Harbinger into Ardent
the
Sensor.
Ardent Sensor as well. I didn't even...
Kog'Maw, kill everyone,
just power
please.
him up.
I mean...
That was a worst case scenario team fight for Team Dignitas if there's ever been one, because we know how much crowd control and burst damage they have, and they just have to use that on the damage dealers. But they burned everything on the front line.
We've seen it so many times. Lake and Elise, best thing she can do is take a bunch of hits early. I mean, you got Alistar to blow his ultimate, and then you take a bunch of hits.
Yeah. It worked out. I mean, it worked out. Yeah, okay, the frontliners died, but yeah, a survived game, and the big damage dealers, the 2 core players on the roster, Gate and Apollo, they put the damage out, especially that hero play in the team fight. The flash ulti by Gate was huge.
Yeah, Gate flying in at the end there. The analyst desk better go over that fight in detail, because there was a lot of damage that got thrown out right at the end, and I want to see how Team Dignitas used their stuns, because it seemed like a lot of the CC wasn't able to reach Apollo or Gate for meaningful damage to follow up, whether it was a CC problem or a damage follow-up problem from either Shifter or Core JJ, because it did seem like Apollo was pretty much free hitting the majority of that time.
Yeah, and with all the defensive ultimates, Janna ult used for herself, Shen ult on Janna as well, Gate and Apollo kept themselves safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so really, really solid stuff there. Game 1, of course, the best of 5. They're going to switch sides for Game 2. Adaptation is going to be a really big deal. The coaches going to be massive for this next one. But for a closer look at that first game and that Team Impulse win, going to check in with our analyst desk.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I see you, Jat. We will discuss that play in full detail. We might even take 30 minutes to discuss it, if that's what he really wants, right?
Nerf mode.
Play the whole thing at like a quarter speed. An 1/8 speed, maybe? I don't know.
Every ability covered.
Yeah, stick around to find out. But I do want to start at the beginning of the game, because we saw a very slow early game and an interesting lane swap or swap back from Dignitas.
So usually when you see a lane swap, you want to either defend the tower that is going to be pushed, or go and just push your own tower and trade 1-for-1. So a good strength of Tristana in all phases of the game is that now she's kind of a demolitions expert and can take towers super fast with her E, her explosive shot. And they didn't do that. They chunked top tower by a lot, and they realized that Tip was trying to go for a hold. They contested the blue buff, and then they just backed off. And for some reason after that, their whole lane swap idea just collapsed, and they kept Tristan on the top side. Her summoners were burned, and they never took the tower. And then Gamsu TP'd to the bot lane and got zoned off a bunch of CS. He was unable to last hit. He was last hitting pretty poorly as well. But you're not using your Tristan to its advantage. You can push towers very fast. And then they swapped the lanes back into a 2v2 scenario where you cannot aggress because they have the Shen ultimate. So it was just all over the place, and they were losing lanes pretty hard. But Tip didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. We noticed that Rush didn't have a ton of presence in the early game on that Elise, so playing that slow game seemed to be working in Dig's favor.
I do want to touch on the Tristana for just a second, because that was a lane swap that was initiated by the Tristana by Dignitas. They didn't get the turret, and on top of it, they didn't even use the Tristana correctly later on. I would have liked to see a different pick, because it's a very team fight-oriented composition. and they didn't even need a Tristana because she didn't even give them that early gold advantage that you get from a turret. That's the big bonus. It should be a passive on Tristana that you get a turret at the start of the game a little bit faster than the enemy, but they weren't even able to capitalize on that, so I think that Tristana pick was just completely worthless at that point.
Yeah, well, let's jump ahead. We have a couple replays we're going to go over, so I want to get into the first one. 31 minutes into the game, it's an ace and a baron for Dignitas off the back end of that. We're going to pull that up just now. Crumbs, I'm going to let you walk us through this one.
So this fight showcases Tip's composition. They need to be grouped at all times, and they are not. Like, Cocoon is already used, and the Janna and Elise are completely by herself. This is all free damage done from Dig. And as Azir tries to go on the Tristana, who looks like it's going crazy and jumping in, turns out there's an echo stun right there. So it's a little acting from JJ over here. And then, like, you just cannot fight as you're split. Eventually, the fight that Tip wins is actually when they're all clumped up. But this one really reminds them that, look, we have to stick to the game plan, otherwise we're just going to get aced and lose.
And right. that was Dignitas actually picking a good fight because they saw them out of position. Kiwi Kid kept the back line in order, and what ended up happening there was this was right as they got their Zeke's Harbinger on Kiwi Kid. And a big part of this is Zeke's Harbinger, the counter to it, is kill the support. If you kill the support, that item is no longer affecting the AD carry. And what happened was Core JJ actually, his turned online, and he turned and he killed Gate in 3 hits.
Yeah, I have to jump in here real quick. We actually had an LCS Big Play tweet for that replay right there. At Kitasilva wrote for that play. Amazing fight and comeback out of Team Dignitas. Way to go, Kiwi Kid. Again, this is kind of the glimpse of the Dignitas that can win the series. When they play like this, decisive calls, punishing mistakes. You're mentioning that, Tip's composition is not effective when split up. Dig recognizing that and attacking that weakness.
I think in that fight, the big hero happened to be Helios and not so much Kiwi Kid, because Echo's mechanic, the way he works, when he throws out the stun, the parallel conversions, if he's in sight, you will hear it. He will say, like, whatever sound that he says, he makes it, and you hear him, you see him do it, and then everybody, okay, just back off. But he was hidden in the Raptor Rush. Throws it away. Gate doesn't know that there's a stun coming out, walks right into it, and in the fight that they end up losing, the stun only hits the Shen where it could have hit the back line.
Now I want to move us ahead to our next replay. 39 minutes in, this is what you were talking about, Crumbs, what happens when the team is together. We're going to pull this one up on your screen, and Zyrene, I'm going to let you walk us through it.
I think the stun actually hits Gate a little bit on the side too, but what happens is he's got this set up, he's already got soldiers out, and he's just poking, whittling them down, and then they blow a lot. Adrian flashes away so the Zeke stays online, and then they stun Apollo against the wall, but they don't focus him, they focus Rush. And now they're all in the choke point, and this is properly set up by Azir. Boom, throws everybody into where his soldiers are, and he just destroys them. And meanwhile, off screen, Apollo, he has his Zeeks online. He's just throwing so much damage into them. And the fact that, like Jat was talking about where they use their stuns, Gnar hits 2 people, they focus all their damage on Rush while Apollo is stunned right there, and then they aren't able to follow up afterwards. They blew all their damage on some mildly tanky members.
I mean, that's exactly how you want that composition to work. Ideally, you want to be sieging, so it's just in a straight line, tanks in front, Elise in the middle, and then you have Janna, Cog, and Azir way far back. So in that choke, when it came into the brush, reminiscent of being in the lane. You got the tanks in the front soaking up as much damage as possible, with the very long-range Kog'Maw and Azir just dishing out damage, untouched, protected by the terrain.
Yeah, you have to have a formation for this team composition because it involves disengage and sieging. And we saw it locked in. We're like, Azir and Kog'Maw, sole damage dealers of this comp.
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep them alive with the Janna. And they did exactly that in that fight. And we got to see a fight that Dignitas played correctly and one that TIP played correctly.
Yeah.
And that last fight, Dignitas was picking that fight. This is the whole story of picking the fights even when you don't have to. And that's the big weakness that Dignitas has been running into, is they fight because they think they can win under any circumstances, but they can't. That's the reality of the game.
I think, if anything, that game proves that this can be a very close series. That's just game 1. We have the possibility of 4 more to come. We're going to take a quick break while the teams reset for game 2 in this quarterfinal series between Team Dignitas and Impulse. Don't go anywhere.
And you should be nothing but happy today. Remember that 3 months ago we were playing relegation game, and now we are playing for a spot in New York.
fight has begun all the same. Rush in the front line, Apollo zoned out. Ulti only knocks really Adrian in, and the fight continues as Rush picks up a kill. He catches Rush, and Rush goes down. A rampage for Core JJ, and the fight continues. A kill back for Gate. Impact trying to run. Adrian's doing some damage. He's doing what he can with auto attacks. Here comes the Echo. Teleport in from Shen. This should be enough. There's the game. Team Impulse take game 1.